Hi everybody, it's Mo on the go. How are my subscribers? How are my beautiful subscribers? I've been missing you, but I've been very busy trying to put some information together because I like to talk from a point of evidence and information, from facts. I don't really like to talk from emotion. But in some instances, sometimes it's important to also have emotion, to also be emotional and to think and to act without necessarily always consulting documentation too much, and to just use your mind and your brain and wisdom. In this day and age, I've been telling people that what's going to work now is wisdom, not knowledge. Knowledge is not helping anybody. You can have all the PhDs and all kinds of postdocs and degrees and everything, but in the meantime, right now, it's not helping with COVID situation. People don't even understand it. Even, world-renowned scientists and doctors can't figure it out. But in the meantime, what is the topic on everybody's lips today in Africa? It's about bring our Africans back from China. Now, I've been wondering to myself and talking to a couple of people who I know and asking, what is the situation in China with our Africans really? Because I'm always a bit skeptical when it comes to listening to just the news and using the news as my only source of information, the regular media as my only source of information. I always like to test and find out what the situation really is. And from my knowledge and from what I understand, and I'm going to have to go into this one in depth on another day. We have old Guangzhou. Guangzhou has always been the main trade capital where Africans go to buy goods. And on certain occasions, Africans have overstayed their visas and remained in Guangzhou. That is not to say that every African in China is illegal, but it's to say that there is a significant proportion of Africans living in China who don't also have their papers and documentation together. Therefore, even access to the law and the league and the laws and protection and their rights is limited, because one, they're not known in terms of where they are, who they are, etc. And we only get to know about this when these kinds of situations happen, when they are evicted from their homes and everything. We also need to understand that we have a language barrier. Okay, there is information that is printed in Chinese that many of us don't also read, and we don't understand it. And some of that information, for example, is that, look, you have overstayed, you haven't paid your rent. It's written in Chinese. You haven't paid your rent, and therefore we have evicted you from this apartment. In many of these instances, these are Africans who are unable, for one reason or another, to pay their rent and therefore were evicted from their apartments. Apparently, in Guangzhou, it is common knowledge that blacks are generally treated much more poorly than many other cities in China. Well, I'll tell you what, I need to go back in and do a bit more research on this, but my source of information tell me that in many instances, the local government of China is the one that comes up with these new rules and regulations and actions, okay, which are not necessarily shared at the national level, at the national level. And that's why you always find out, you'll notice that majority of these cases are coming from Guangzhou. We call it's Guangzhou, but it's actually Guangzhou. So without going into detail about the situation, let us look at ourselves. Let us, look internally on us as Africans and ask ourselves, are we being hypocritical here? Listen here, why are we going to pretend and be hypocritical here and pretend that we actually did not see all those 49 presidents marching and trooping into China to go and collect a few arms, yeah? Running like little boys, all of them were men, by the way, into China with begging bowl in hand, completely violating our African principles for self-respect, for self-respect and self-honor. Okay? We lost our honor, guys. We have lost our honor. We lost our honor when we became beggars to the Chinese. And I don't even see why it is even necessary for us to be demanding that the Chinese respect us. The Chinese are watching us. They have watched us and they have seen how we treat each other, how far we are ready to go, okay, to give up our principles, our dignity, our pride, our ego, just for a couple of dollars or shillings or kwacha or whatever, It's really unfortunate because our men, in fact, by the way, I felt personally violated when all our African men who I respect trooped to China several times when called by the Chinese headmaster, walked down that carpet, okay, and shook the guy's hand and said, "Oh, thank you very much. Thank you so much for these little arms. We'll definitely go and develop our transportation system, or we're going to go and build our roads and etc." I'll tell you what, guys. You know what? If you don't have any self-respect, don't expect other people to respect you. Okay? It's actually it's far-flung to imagine that we can actually expect other people to respect us when we have demonstrated that we have no self-respect. We don't even have any love for our mother continent. We are ready to sell everything up in the air and down below the sea and down below the ground just for a couple of pennies, so that we don't have to actually think. We don't have to use our minds to think about how we can create wealth, okay, with the raw resources that we have in our ground, on the land, and all over the place, okay, and in our oceans and everything. So here we are, we sign contracts. And these leaders have gone out there, they've signed contracts that are actually secretive. We have no idea what they actually agreed to. Meanwhile, every single time that you go out there and shop, look at your tax receipt. You're paying taxes, even on the flour that you eat, on the food that you eat, on the clothes that you buy, on the alcohol that you drink, on the cigarettes that you... And majority of that money is going to pay off debt. It's going to pay off debt. It's not helping you or your children or your future. It's going to pay off debt. Okay, majority of that money. And much of that money is also going into corruption. It's going into line the pockets of the people who borrowed this money on our behalf. Now tell me something. Who can ever give somebody permission to go and take a loan from a bank on behalf of you or, you know, your family member, and not even tell you the conditions? And you're okay with that and you're expected to pay back. You know what, guys? I think we need to introspect. That's the right word I was looking for. We need to introspect as Africans. We should not expect other people to treat our people, other societies, whether they're Chinese or Westerners or whoever they are, foreigners, to treat our people any better than we're ready to treat ourselves. Let me tell you, there's something that I actually learned as a parent, when I was parenting my child. It's like, if you speak ill of your child, believe me, society will also speak ill of your child. If you treat your child poorly, believe me, society will also treat your child poorly. If you treat your animal poorly, okay, believe me, that dog will be... If you have, for example, a pet like a dog, and you keep it out on the street, and you're kicking it, and you're mistreating it, and you're starving it, and everything, believe me, the neighborhood will also mistreat it. But I tell you what, if you are seen to love your pet, to love your family member, to love your child, to speak positively about them all the time, it will also draw positive energy towards anything that belongs to you, okay? So this is what has happened, is that our nations, ourselves, we have not actually shown any brotherly love or sisterly love to other African nations. In my own country of Kenya, it is very difficult for other African nationals to get visas to work in the country. But believe me, they'll be tripping over their heads to give visas, work visas, to foreigners with a different skin color. Believe me. And that includes the Chinese. The Chinese are much more likely to get a work visa in our country. People who cannot even speak the language, people who know nothing about our continent, those people who cannot add any value, and all they're doing is just drawing and taking away from your continent, they will be given work permits faster than a professor who has degrees and postdoc and everything, or somebody who is highly skilled from another country in Africa. And that's a fact. It's not just South Africa that is guilty of this. Although in South Africa, I remember traveling to South Africa, and because I do hold dual citizenship out of birth, and I didn't choose that, okay? I was born in a different country. I was born in the West, grew up in Africa. I happened to have dual citizenship, and one time I had to travel to South Africa. And because I didn't have time to get the visa, I quickly decided, okay, let me just use my foreign visa to go to South Africa. Of course, foreigners are put in one queue. So there's the African foreigner, and then there's the Western foreigner. So I went into the Western foreigner queue because of my passport. And of course, there were Chinese as well. I tell you, what I saw brought tears to my eyes. I tell you, I almost started to feel guilty, like I'm going to move out of this line and go to my African brothers and sisters line, because the kind of interrogation that they went through, the kind of humiliation I saw with our African brothers and sisters, the number of people who were lining up in that line, actually it made me cry. Meanwhile, in my queue, all the non-blacks were going through like water, you know, going through like a stream. You go in, you see the immigration officer, you're given a pass. It's almost like you own the country. On the other hand, the Chinese had their own queue. It's almost like they had their own immigration officials. They had their own queue. They were not even lined up where we were. They were not lined up where Africans were. They were lined up with their own Chinese. And they had their own immigration officers giving them preferential treatment, all right, and processing their papers much faster than every one of us. So I'll tell you what, the day that we don't show self-love to each other, do you think that those Chinese are not watching and seeing how Africans are treating each other? And not just in South Africa. Look at us. We are ready to give them the prime land. We are ready to give them jobs. We are ready to allow them to open businesses at the expense of Africans. We are ready to allow them to abuse and insult us. We are ready to allow them not to serve us. And we don't even take action, proper action, against all of them, you know? So guys, let me tell you what, please stop crying wolf. Stop crying wolf about these Africans being mistreated in China. Don't expect that you go with begging bowl in hand to China and the Chinese are going to respect you, or that the Chinese are going to treat you well, or they're going to treat our African brothers and sisters well. The day we learn to be self-sufficient, the day we learn to live with what we have, and the day that we actually show some sort of, you know, love for our continent and love for ourselves, is the day that we will draw positive energy towards us. So yes, let us do something and intervene on behalf of our brothers, African brothers and sisters in China. But please spare me all this crap. You know, spare me the rhetoric. Spare us all the rhetoric of, oh, they're not treating us well. They don't even want us. Why should they be in Africa? They don't like us. They hate us. Oh, come on, guys. Yeah, who really likes us? And why does it matter who likes us? Do you think that when these Europeans come to Africa, they give a damn who likes us? Do you think who likes them? Do you think when the Chinese come to Africa, they give a damn who likes them? I have been in so many African countries where Chinese are. I've even been to the South Pacific and worked there where Chinese are. And there are many places, many people actually feel disdain for the Chinese. Do you think they give a damn? They don't give a damn. They go ahead with their own work and they even learn the local language. They learn the local language so that you cannot talk behind their back. It's for their own security. It's not because they like you. It's because they want to be secure. They want to be able to understand what you're saying about them. All right? So let me tell you what, guys. Stop this rhetoric. Let us just quietly bring our Africans back and let us sit down and strategize. And let's not go all over social media crying foul. Because we have been watching our leaders. We are still going to be electing them again come the next elections. And they're still going to be playing these stupid, dirty tricks on us. And we're still going to be tolerating these Chinese. So, and we're going to be clamoring to go to the East. And by the way, don't tell me that you're going to go back to work and you're not going to sell that Chinese outfit. And you're not going to sell that Chinese-made phone. And you're not going to sell that Chinese-made computer. Yes, you will, because you need to make a living. We are interdependent and we are dependent on the Chinese, by the way. We are dependent on the Chinese, they are dependent on us. What we need to do is to draw up terms that are mutually acceptable and agreeable, okay? And mutually respectful of each of us, and also open and transparent. We must demand transparency and openness of our governments, and that's what we need to do, okay? All right, guys, this was a major rant. I apologize for this, but I have to tell you that this has really been bothering me, and I hope that it will plant some food for thought whenever you watch videos or people complaining, or the media, you know, talking about how, oh, they don't like us, or they're mistreating us. Come on, you know, we should, you know, evaluate, and we should critique the information that we're getting, and, you know, speak from a point of knowledge, not be overly emotional. Let's be logical about this situation, okay? So on that note, I wish you well. I give you some food for thought. I wish you well, and hope that you are still managing to self-quarantine yourself. And if not, then you can go out and take a walk with fresh air. But remember to wear your face mask, because we don't really understand this virus. It could be airborne. And therefore, if it's airborne, we need to protect ourselves and our loved ones. On that note, I wish you well. Thank you so much for those of you who have come in and joined us new. Please share these videos of mine widely. I don't really have a great following, and I'm trying to grow my followers, although I am appreciative of those who have stayed for quite this time. So today we don't have music, but don't worry. Next time I'm going to play my beautiful music for you. So on that note, bye-bye. To-do. Take care of yourselves. Bye.